Hey there! Welcome to the Rider Revolution video series. In this series, we're going to investigate some of the common myths about the rider seat and how these myths are actually holding you back from making progress in your riding. I am Shanna Ritter.
I'm Thomas Ritter.
And this is Rosie. And we run a program called artisticdressage.com where we run online courses for riders, like perhaps like you, who want to learn how to understand the what, why, how of riding and training their horses. Thomas has published several books. Yep. And we'll just leave it at that. Okay. So in this first video of the series, we're talking about common rider mistakes that are holding you back from making progress in your riding. What are those mistakes, Thomas?
Well,
let me tell you.
Yeah. Well, not riding forward is a very typical one. Riding front to back, which sounds similar, but it's a slightly different thing.
Yeah, front to back riding, you know, like
exactly.
rain seat.
Digging in with your seat bones, stiff hips, ripping legs, lack of confidence.
Want to look at your notes?
Yeah, collapsing waist, pumping upper body, pumping torso. It's a canter issue. Swinging legs, noisy lower legs.
Yeah. These are
else?
very common mistakes.
Tipping forward, with the upper body, of course.
Yeah.
That's one of those.
So maybe let's go into briefly each one of those real quick and why these are a problem.
Yeah. So the not riding forward enough really refers to the rider not generating enough pushing power in certain horses. Some horses, push too much, and that's a different issue. But some horses are maybe a little lazy, or for whatever reason they don't have enough urge to go forward, and if you allow that, then the energy of the hind legs can't reach the bit. It gets stuck somewhere, fizzles out somewhere on the way between the hind legs and the bit, and then the horse won't be able to lift his back, and he won't be able to connect to the rein.
Won't develop the top line muscles correctly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the one mistake. Another mistake is this riding front to back,
which can cause the first one.
Yeah. So they're related in some ways, right? But the front to back is, for example, a rider who is not balanced and hangs on the reins and water skis.
That's one
tries to create stability by hanging on the reins.
Or the rider that also tries to just ride the front end of the horse, just working on the head and neck, shaping the head and neck without realizing how the rest of the horse is related to that.
Or if the horse is rushy and the rider tries to slow down, or if the rider is scared of the horse, because it's a big powerful mover, and then they try to make the gait smaller with the reins. That's all part of front to back riding. So it has different aspects to it.
And so that creates a similar problem in that the horse develops all the wrong muscles.
Right, exactly.
And actually over time becomes unsound. And it's a big one.
Yeah.
So what else did we cover?
Then tight hips,
Yeah.
very, very common mistake that basically prevents the horse from swinging or lifting his back and from engaging the hind legs. Stiff rider's hips don't allow the rider to sit the trot or the canter. They make the movement of the horse's back smaller, and that makes the horse brace with his back, and that usually means they brace with their underneck and the poll, and then the hind legs can't step under enough. So it has a whole domino effect, chain reaction of the horse. Then digging in seat bones. That's when you sit with all your weight on your seat bones, which also drops the horse's back. Then you can see depressions in the back muscles of the horse if somebody sits with their entire weight on the seat bones. Digging in seat bones often has to do with, or is correlated with stiff hips too.
Yeah.
And pulling knees up and lower legs too far forward, chair seat.
Yeah, in fact, a lot of these problems, they usually don't happen in isolation. Usually a rider makes several of these mistakes, and they are related, but we have different ways of addressing each of them. So let's go on.
Yeah, then gripping legs is on the list, common mistake. And gripping legs could be lower leg, clamping on your lower leg because maybe you think you need to drive all the time.
Or doing that to get stability. Some riders kind of like
exactly.
the little monkey, hanging on with the legs,
Yeah.
And then there's also the knees, gripping
Knees
with
and
the
thighs,
knees.
yeah. Some people grip with their knees or thighs.
Yeah.
That has to do with lack of balance and stability.
Also,
If the spine of the rider is not stable enough because the inner core muscles are not doing their job, then the rider has to use hands and legs in order not to fall off, right? So that leads to hanging on the reins, leads to gripping with the legs and so on. And that, of course, locks the rider's hips as well. If you grip a lot with your legs, if you clamp your lower legs on, the horses will hold their breath and brace their oblique muscles against the leg. They stop breathing, basically. They hold their breath and brace. So the back of the horse and the rib cage gets stiff, from gripping legs. Often the horses then go less and less forward because they're so busy holding their breath and bracing against the leg. Then they get slower and slower, and that can lead to this vicious cycle, right? The horse doesn't go forward enough, so the rider uses a lot of leg and grips and drives and squeezes.
The rider works harder, the horse works
and then
less
the horse
hard.
goes less forward because of all this gripping and squeezing of the legs, and so the rider drives more, and then the horse gets even slower, and that sort of thing. And some horses,
a vicious cycle.
Yeah, some horses stop and they kick at the rider's leg.
Yeah.
If you do that, if they're sensitive in that way.
Yep. Or they balk at things, get spooky, any number of disobediences can happen. Yeah.
Exactly.
What else?
Then tipping forward with the upper body, of course, a very common mistake that often happens also with tight hips. If the hip flexors are contracted and the rider feels maybe insecure and is not well balanced, then a lot of riders tip forward and also
can
hang
deal
on
with
the reins.
insecurity, can also tightness in the body and lack of feeling of balance. When you feel insecure and unbalanced on the horse to begin with, you tend to take this protective posture and tip forward, and so it's very common. I used to struggle with that one.
Yeah, me too.
And
then pumping torso, that's mainly a canter issue where the rider's upper body swings forward and back. That is an instability of the lumbar spine, also stiffness in the hips and knee joints of the rider. It can also be caused by the horse. If the horse is very stiff behind, then you get kicked forward basically when the inside hind touches down in the canter. Then you get this kick in the rear, so to speak, from below, and the horse might also tug on the rein, and your shoulders get pulled forward, and then as the hind legs start pushing and towards the third beat of the canter stride, your pelvis gets pulled forward and the shoulders go back in this whiplash effect, and then it creates this rocking motion, and that puts the horse out of balance, because if you lean forward, you push the horse on the forehand, and when your shoulders fly back and the pelvis goes forward, then you end up pushing the horse onto the forehand, so the horse gets more and more unbalanced, and the rider gets more unbalanced in a way. In a way too. Then the collapsing waist, of course, common problem that the riders have a C curve in their spine.
it's a crookedness issue.
It's a crookedness issue of horse and rider. It can be caused by the horse pushing one hip up against you, so you sit on an incline. So
kind of like that.
And then if your right hip is up, your right shoulder tends to go down to compensate.
This C.
And some riders have a crooked pelvis or jammed sacroiliac joint and so on that can cause the crooked position of the pelvis. And, or the muscles on one side of the spine are contracted, on the other
And
side
you
they're
can't
more
really,
elongated.
as long as the rider is crooked, the rider can't ever really straighten the horse, because everything that you do will be asymmetrical as a rider. So you're going to cause even further asymmetry in your horse, and it becomes another vicious circle. So that's a common one that can create big problems. What else?
Then the swinging legs, or noisy lower legs in general. In the canter also, the inside leg often gets flung forward when the main diagonal touches down in the second beat, and then when the inside front is down in the third beat, the rider's pelvis gets pulled forward. That often makes the whole inside leg especially swing forward all the way. But you see it in the trot that the rider's legs kind of bang, and then they wiggle sort of, or
Yeah, in and out
fly
a
off
little
the
bit.
horse,
Yeah.
or fly off the horse and back on the horse. So it looks like the rider is spurring the horse every stride, but often it's just a hypermobility of the knees that's caused by a stiffness in the hips.
Higher up, yeah.
Higher up, exactly, and maybe instability in the lumbar spine, that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
it's a compensation, right? If one joint doesn't flex and extend enough, other joints have to work overtime.
Yeah.
And that's where you see the noisy hands or the noisy legs and so on.
Yeah, and then we have one more that is very common for riders. It's the lack of confidence. It's a fear issue, or related to a fear issue. It's a lack of confidence, and this shows up in the rider's seat. It also causes big problems in the riding because then your actions don't follow your intentions, and there's a discrepancy. And so this is where we have riders that say, and we've all been here, right? Say, well, I'm asking him to go forward, but your seat is actually saying, please don't. Please don't go forward to your horsey. And the horse doesn't read what the loudness of your aids as much as the subtlety of your seat. Yeah, and so this can create big problems. So that's another big one, and this comes from a lack of confidence and but it's a seat issue too. It shows up in the seat, and we can address it with the seat. We can actually improve confidence by working on the seat. But the common ways of working on the seat are usually, well, everybody recommends lunge lessons. And lunge lessons can be great, but they can have some problems. There are some problems with lunge lessons too. It's not the be-all end-all solution all the time. And we're going to talk about that in the next video. So just click on the next video and we'll meet you there. See you.